What's this?
He called me a whore.
She a good kisser?
Hey, outside.
Sandy?
What?
The story kicks off in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where a guy in a van pulls into a parking garage near PNC Park. After paying for parking, he calmly puts together a sniper rifle and starts taking random shots at people near the stadium and along the North Shore Trail. 5 people drop before he makes his getaway in the same van. Detective Emerson and his team arrive at the scene, piecing together clues. They find a spent shell casing and the coin used for parking. When they run the fingerprint from the coin, it points straight to James Barr, an ex-U.S. Army sniper. The cops raid Barr's place and hit the jackpot: his van, equipment for making bullets, the sniper rifle, and Barr himself. He gets arrested on the spot. During questioning, Emerson and District Attorney Alex Rodan give Barr 2 choices: confess and get life in prison, or fight the charges and face certain execution. Rodan has never lost a case. But instead of saying anything about the crime, Barr writes down 4 words: get Jack Reacher. Emerson explains that Reacher is a former military police officer, a top-tier investigator with multiple awards. He walked away from the Army, cut all ties, and vanished. No home, no credit cards, no phone, nothing. Tracking him down is nearly impossible. But then, out of nowhere, Reacher shows up at the DA's office right as Rodan and Emerson are discussing him. Rodan refuses to let Reacher look at the case evidence, but does allow him to visit Barr, who was badly beaten by other inmates during transport and is now in a coma at the hospital. There, Reacher meets Barr's lawyer, Helen Rodan, the DA's daughter. She's trying to keep Barr from getting the death penalty. Reacher makes it clear that he's not here to help Barr and doesn't know why Barr specifically asked for him. Helen offers him access to the evidence if he agrees to be her lead investigator. He turns her down, stating that Barr is a cold-blooded killer. Reacher explains that back when Barr was stationed in Iraq, he desperately wanted to kill. But since he never got orders to shoot, he came back home frustrated. One day, he snapped and went on a killing spree, targeting men who were later found to have committed serious crimes, like assaulting 28 Iraqi women over 4 days. Since those victims were criminals themselves, the Army covered up the killings, and Barr walked free. Reacher had promised himself that if Barr ever killed again, he'd take him down. Now that it seems Barr has done just that, Reacher is puzzled. Why would Barr ask for him, knowing Reacher would want justice, not help? Helen agrees to let Reacher investigate, but he insists she visit the victims' families to get a better understanding of who they were. Her efforts take a dark turn when one of the grieving relatives threatens her. Her father scolds her for taking on such a risky case, warning her that it's unwinnable and dangerous. Meanwhile, Reacher checks out the crime scene, unaware that a man in a car is secretly watching him, holding a file with Reacher's information. At the scene, Reacher notices something off. The best sniping spot would have been from the nearby Fort Bainbridge, not the parking garage. Something isn't adding up. Later, he meets with Emerson to go over the rifle evidence. Emerson is impressed by Reacher's memory when he recites the weapon's serial number without looking at notes. Reacher starts questioning why Barr, a trained sniper, would do something as stupid as paying for parking before randomly killing strangers. That night, Reacher stops at a bar for a meal. A young woman named Sandy cozies up to him, but when he calls her out as a prostitute, she gets offended. Soon after, her so-called boyfriend and his crew show up, itching for a fight. Reacher warns them to back off, but they don't listen, so he takes them all down with ease. Strangely, the cops arrive almost immediately and arrest him. Helen bails him out, and Reacher realizes this wasn't just some bar fight. It was a setup meant to scare him off the case. Someone out there wants him to walk away. Meanwhile, the man tailing Reacher is revealed to be Linsky. He meets up with Charlie, the real shooter from the opening scene, and their boss, a mysterious figure known as the Zek. Linsky confesses that he hired the goons to mess with Reacher, and also admits to killing one of them, Jeb, because Jeb recognized him. The Zek, clearly unimpressed with Linsky's mistakes, orders him to bite off his own thumbs as punishment. When Linsky hesitates, Charlie doesn't give him a second chance. He pulls the trigger, killing him on the spot. The following day, Reacher tracks Sandy down at her job in an auto parts store. She confesses that she was pressured into approaching him at the bar by Jeb. Feeling bad for her, Reacher suggests she lay low for a few days and leave town. Borrowing her car, he heads to Jeb's house to continue investigating. As soon as he steps inside, he's ambushed by Jeb's friends, but he manages to take them down in a fight. Interrogating one of them, he discovers Jeb has been missing for several days, which confirms his suspicion that Jeb is already dead. Reacher updates Helen on his findings and starts to believe Barr might have been set up. The only evidence linking him to the crime scene is the coin with his fingerprint. Reacher figures Barr asked for his help not because they were friends, but because he trusted Reacher to uncover the truth, even if Reacher believed him guilty. Reacher theorizes that the Russian mob planted Barr's fingerprint and DNA on the evidence to frame him. He also notices a car tailing him since he started the investigation. Running a background check, he finds out it's registered to a shell company controlled by the Russian mob. Turns out, the mob had been trying to buy a construction company to expand their legitimate operations, but the owner refused and even took legal action against them. Reacher deduces that the mob arranged the owner's murder, making it look like part of a random shooting spree by killing 4 other people to mask the true motive. Meanwhile, Charlie and his gang track down Sandy and kill her, framing Reacher for her murder. Following a lead, Reacher travels to Ohio to visit a shooting range owned by a former Marine named Cash. Cash is reluctant to talk, but after Reacher proves his shooting skills, he finally opens up. He tells Reacher that James Barr was once his best marksman, capable of hitting bullseyes from 700 yards. However, Reacher isn't convinced, arguing that Barr never showed that level of skill in the Army. He suspects someone tampered with Barr's target sheets to make him seem more competent. Surveillance footage later confirms this. Barr was frequently seen with a man Reacher recognizes as a member of the Russian mob. The real masterminds behind the plot are Russian mobsters posing as businessmen, led by an old ex-Soviet Gulag inmate known only as the Zay. They have a corrupt cop, Detective Emerson, on their payroll, who helps them stay one step ahead. The mob eventually kidnaps Helen, holding her hostage at a construction site. With backup sniper fire from Cash, Reacher takes down the guards one by one. He then confronts Charlie, challenging him to a hand-to-hand fight. Using his superior combat skills, Reacher easily takes him down. When he finally faces Emerson, Reacher reveals that the biggest clue exposing his involvement was the parking meter, something only an insider would have thought to manipulate. Reacher rescues Helen with precise shooting, killing Emerson in the process. Reacher then confronts the Zay, who smugly claims that with all his accomplices dead, there are no remaining witnesses against him. He even mocks Reacher, saying that as a drifter accused of murder, he's more likely to end up in jail than the Zay himself. Without a moment's hesitation, Reacher shoots the Zay in the head, putting an end to his schemes. Confident that Helen will work to clear his name, Reacher leaves the scene alongside Cash, knowing that he's now a wanted man. When James Barr finally wakes up from his coma, he tells Helen he has no memory of what happened. However, convinced of his own guilt, he mentally reconstructs how he would have carried out the crime. His imagined version of events perfectly aligns with Reacher's original theory, which Helen later explains to her father. Oblivious to all these developments, Barr still believes he must be guilty and is ready to confess, fearing that if the justice system fails, Reacher will take matters into his own hands. If you like this video, don't be shy. Hit that like button, and if you didn't like it, go ahead and hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It's always better to watch the full movie for the complete experience. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content.